Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze how England's midfield shuttlers played a key role in their 3-0 win over Senegal. So in today's video, first we're going to focus on Senegal's shape, then we'll shift to Bellingham and Henderson's impact in that midfield zone, and lastly we'll focus on the initial 10 minutes of the second half where Harry Kane played a key role in helping unlock that Senegal backline. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have England in a 4-3-3 and Senegal playing in a 4-2-3-1 that became a 4-4-2 out of possession. So first we're going to focus on Senegal's shape, and it was clear that they were dropping off into a narrow compact 4-4-2 out of possession, and they were looking to ensure that England couldn't play through that midfield zone. They had the front two sitting in between Rice to ensure that he couldn't get on the ball, and then they had their double pivot going 2v2 against Bellingham and Henderson. If the ball pushed out to Shaw and Walker, they'd have their wide players closing out in those positions, and then they would have protection from those wide players dropping off if Foden or Saka got on the ball. There were situations where you had Dia stepping forward to apply pressure towards Maguire and Stones if they received the ball, and from there the front two alternated their roles by stepping towards the center back who had possession of the ball, and the free attacking player would sit on Rice to ensure that he couldn't get on the ball freely. This did create issues for England in terms of building out of the back, and it resulted in Maguire and Stones pushing forward and playing loose passes in towards the midfield zone, which gave Senegal a chance to break forward and transition from the England third. However, when you focus on England's shape in terms of their build-up, there were times where they often look like a 3-1-6, with Maguire, Stones, and Walker serving as the center backs, and they were looking to push Shaw forward down the left-hand side. There were occasions where Bellingham dropped in towards the inside left position to allow Shaw to push forward, and Foden would drift in towards the central area, and then he would drop off deeper in search of the ball and then looking to spin forward to break in towards the final third. There were also situations where Foden shifted towards the touchline and Shaw pushed into more of an inverted left-sided role, and from there Bellingham was still providing protection from that left-hand side. However, there were occasions where Bellingham pushed forward, Shaw was pushing higher up the pitch, Foden was tucking in, and Maguire was shifting towards that left touchline zone to stretch out the back line. In many cases, they were getting width from Shaw pushing higher up the pitch down the left, Foden and Bellingham were pushing forward to provide support for Kane, Henderson was also pushing forward, and then Saka was hugging the touchline. With Walker's narrow positioning, Saka was always an outlet towards the right touchline, and he was often getting into 1v1s or at times 1v2s against the wide players on that side, and he was also an outlet to help create the half chances that England were creating, whether it be playing long balls in towards him and him picking out runners breaking in towards the box, or simply getting the ball in that zone and looking for Kane breaking in towards the penalty area. However, the key element to England's success against Senegal was the energy that they received from Bellingham and Henderson in that midfield zone, and it simply stemmed with how they looked to press initially. They had Saka and Foden looking to step towards the fullbacks, but there were situations where they had the wide players stepping towards the free center back and blocking off the passing lane and towards the fullbacks. For instance, on the right hand side, it was often Saka looking to push towards Koulibaly, but if Saka was bypassed and the ball pushed out towards the Senegal left back, that would see Henderson shifting out towards that zone to close him down, and then Rice would push forward to close down the spare man in that midfield zone. This often happened when Henderson or Bellingham pushed forward to close down a center back. Rice was capable of stepping towards their spare man to pick him up due to the fact that Senegal's supporting attacking midfielder wasn't dropping off in towards that zone, so Rice was simply covering space in towards the front two, and that enabled him to step forward to close down either Bellingham's spare man or Henderson's spare man in that midfield area. Another key talking point here is that when the England shuttlers pushed forward to help Kane with the press from the front, when they were stepping towards the center backs and applying pressure, they were often forcing them into loose passes in towards the midfield zone, and from there England were able to retain possession. There were also situations where Bellingham in particular was stepping forward to either a midfielder that he was supposed to close down or a center back to win the ball, and there were several occasions throughout that game where you saw him winning possession higher up the pitch or forcing Senegal to restart their attack. The other key factor here for Bellingham was that when he won possession in those zones, there were situations where he was capable of breaking forward in towards the final third and looking to create avenues for his teammates to get onto the ball. There was one time down the left channel where he delivered a cross in towards that area, but it was unsuccessful. And there was also another pressing scheme where he ended up stepping towards a center back, forcing a loose pass in towards Shaw, and from there Bellingham was able to receive the loose ball in between the lines, push forward and slide in the left back, breaking in towards left half space. But unfortunately for England here, when Shaw received the ball in that zone, he was unable to round the keeper or present a successful pullback for one of his teammates. So from a defensive perspective, you witnessed how Henderson and Bellingham were able to impact the game by disrupting play in that midfield zone, winning the ball higher up the pitch and looking to break in transition. But from an offensive perspective, they also served as the catalyst in terms of getting England into legitimate goal scoring positions. A combination of their ball carrying skills, their vertical running, and their off-ball runs in towards the final third presented several issues for Senegal, and we witnessed this in the build-up to their opening goal. You have England looking to play around the press from the left-hand side, Shaw playing the ball into the path of Foden, but focus on Bellingham running off his marker. Foden receives the ball and pokes it into the path of Kane, dragging out Koulibaly into the midfield zone, and Kane does a very good job of receiving the ball in that pocket of space and locating Bellingham running off his marker, and that's where he ends up taking two Senegal players out of the game. You have Bellingham continuing his run into the final third and dragging away Henderson's runner, and Bellingham now carries the ball into left half space, drags another defender towards him, and pulls the ball back in towards Henderson's late run into the penalty area, and he finishes first time beyond the keeper. And then even if you focus on the build up to the second goal, it stems with Bellingham simply applying pressure towards the clear out, and he ends up winning the loose ball and nodding it across his marker, and from there that's where you see his dribbling skills. He's able to carry the ball from this position in his own third, and he ends up taking markers out towards him, and he allows Foden to get back into the attack. From here, he bypasses the initial press. He has Kane and Foden breaking in towards the Senegal half. He drags another defender towards him, and that's when he ends up sliding the ball in towards Foden to make it a 2v1. From there, Foden locates Kane breaking free towards goal, and he slides a first-time ball across Koulibaly, placing Kane in this position where he can receive the ball with his first touch and then use his second touch to fire a superb effort beyond the keeper. So where Henderson and Bellingham's movement from those deeper midfield positions created issues, there was even a moment in that opening half where Rice made a forward run that got England in towards the final third. It stemmed with him getting away from his initial marker to get the ball by drifting laterally in his own third. He slid the ball out towards Walker and then continued his forward movement beyond his marker. Walker ended up playing the ball into Henderson, checking in towards the ball, but Henderson identified Rice's run. He dragged his marker towards the ball and dummied the ball in towards Rice, and at the halfway line, Rice was capable of bypassing an initial press and then carrying the ball in towards the final third. And the only issue that he had here was that when he carried the ball towards the box, there were no runners breaking in towards the area, and he ended up firing a low effort towards the 6-yard area that was cleared for a corner. In terms of the second half, while Senegal did make 3 changes, their shape remained, and what we ended up witnessing here was now there was more of an emphasis on Kane dropping off deeper in towards that midfield zone and getting on the ball and looking for the runs of Bellingham and Henderson, but also the runs of Foden and Saka. Kane was doing an intelligent job of dropping away from Koulibaly in towards the half space or near the touchline zone, or he was dropping off deeper into central areas where he wasn't being picked up because the midfielders were focused on Bellingham, Henderson, and Rice, and from here he was looking for runners to impact the game. The center backs were now more involved by playing long balls over the top, and we witnessed Bellingham chasing a few efforts down the left channel, and they also switched the ball out towards Saka, who was also getting into 1v1s, but locating the movement of Henderson breaking forward in towards the half space on the overlap and the underlap, but from there he was delivering crosses into the box that weren't getting towards his teammates. There was a situation where Maguire ended up playing a diagonal ball out towards Saka, and he was able to bring it down and locate the overlapping run of Henderson and beyond him and playing his teammate in towards the right half space, but unfortunately from this position there were no runners breaking in towards the area in time, and his cross was cleared by Koulibaly. Nevertheless, there were several moments in the opening 10 minutes of that second half where you witnessed Kane dropping off deeper and looking to pick out the runs of Foden and Saka, or even Bellingham and Henderson. And when you break down the third goal that ultimately killed off the game, it stems with Shaw winning a loose ball in the midfield zone and playing it into Foden, and that's where you see Bellingham prepared to run off his marker. From there, Foden drops the ball off into the path of Shaw, and you could see Kane drifting in towards that touchline area to drag out Koulibaly. From there, you have Shaw playing the ball in towards Kane, and now Foden and Bellingham running off their markers. And when Kane receives that ball in towards that touchline area, you could see that Koulibaly doesn't get tight towards him. You have Bellingham running beyond him and Saka unmarked high up the pitch. Kane carries the ball forward, and he should look to play the ball in towards Bellingham. He hesitates and he allows the midfielder to slide in towards the tackle, tackle, but that results in Foden receiving the ball freely in the left channel. He evades the challenge towards that zone, and Bellingham's advanced positioning forces Koulibaly to hold his position until Foden breaks towards the left half space. And from there, Koulibaly can't get towards him in time. Saka was still unmarked, and that gives Foden enough time to slide a superb ball across the penalty area for Saka unmarked, and he's able to tap in a first-time effort beyond the keeper to kill off the game. So as you can see, although England struggled to play through Senegal's compact shape with their passing, the vertical running from their midfield shuttlers served as the catalyst to create legitimate openings in the first half, whereas Kane's deep positioning and additional runs in behind from the wide players secured the result.